Muscle building and strength training both have various benefits from their results. But which results are the heaviest? Which results are the most important and useful? I'll explain the popular reasons behind each route and what they are. Strength training is working out to move an object from A to B. This results in you exerting more force on others and increasing your explosivity and agility, which people may use for explosive sports like basketball. You generally get leaner, and obviously, you get significantly stronger. Strength training doesn't necessarily get you big because it targets the muscle fibers with the smallest cross-section. So you still build muscle, but the smaller muscle fibers that are the strongest muscle fibers for their size. However, muscle building is working out to build muscle mass, increase hypertrophy and look bigger. You inevitably build strength but in a lower proportion, and this is because you often don't train with very heavy weights. This also results in you being able to exert more force on others, and you have the potential to get stronger because your body has to adapt to carrying more mass. So, although you may be strong, you would have the potential to get even stronger as mass moves mass, and more mass means more weight moved, hence you getting stronger. Anyway, this can be useful in higher physically demanding sports like rugby, where you exert more force on people when you tackle. But as I already said, this doesn't necessarily mean you're strong. When you train for hypertrophy, you target the muscle fibers with a larger cross-section, which although can exert more force, are weaker for their size relative to the smaller muscle fibers. So if person A theoretically had the same volume of large muscle fibers as person B has with small muscle fibers, he would be weaker than person B. Here are some common misconceptions. People think that more muscle mass means you are strong, but that's not always the case. Someone can carry more muscle mass than another and still be weaker than them because the muscle fibers with the largest cross-section are weaker than the muscles with the smallest cross-section. However, people with more muscle mass have the potential to become stronger than someone with less muscle mass if they train for strength. And it's easier for them to get stronger because their large muscle fibers can transition into the smaller muscle fibers, hence increasing the proportions. They also have the potential to exert more force on others than people with less muscle mass. However, people with less muscle mass have the potential to get bigger if they increase their protein intake in their diet. And if they did that and strength trained simultaneously, they would be like someone who built muscle, but they're stronger, and it's what most powerlifters do. Also, people with less muscle mass have the potential to exert more force than people with muscle mass because they have more agility and it's easier for them to run faster, meaning that if they reach top speed, they would be able to exert more force on people with more muscle mass. Now here's an overview of the pros and cons of each way you can take. However, there'll have to be some constant variables, so assume these factors stay the same. Number 1, they both have the same protein intake. And number 2, they both have the same training routine, apart from different weights. Here are the pros of strength training. Number 1, you generally become stronger than most people. Number 2, you typically become and have the potential to become more explosive and have more agility than people with more muscle mass. And number 3, you can exert more force on others. Here are the pros of muscle building. Number 1, you have the potential to get stronger than people who strength train. Number 2, you look bigger. Number 3, you have the potential to exert more force on others than people who are strength training. And number 4, there's a lower chance of injury. Here are the cons of strength training. There's a higher chance of injury due to the movement of heavier weights. Lastly, here are the cons of muscle building. You won't build as much strength compared to strength training. Keep in mind that it's not only about what people think about you but your goals. If you're playing basketball, maybe you want to become more explosive to adapt to the sport, so you would need to strength train, but not build muscle because it will decrease your strength to mass ratio, which can affect your agility, explosiveness and more. But if you're playing rugby, you would want to exert more force on your opponents, so you must build muscle to increase that, as mass moves mass. These are all assumptions because some people have a lower strength to mass ratio in basketball, and some have a higher strength to mass ratio in rugby, and this leads to my next point because you can build both. There's such a thing as building muscle and strength simultaneously, and although one will be more than the other, the general ratio can be close. For example, if you're playing football, maybe you want to build proportionally more muscle mass than strength as a defender, but as a striker, avoid building muscle mass, so you may aim for building more strength. This is also why pro strength trainers bulk, because mass moves mass, and continuously forcing many large muscle fibers to adapt to heavy weights will transition them into the smaller, stronger muscle fibers, and that's what gets them exceptionally strong. This just shows that increasing your protein intake can bring your potential strength into reality. Gaining mass in general by consuming many calories can do that too, but I don't recommend it because it often results in you consuming sugary foods and empty calories, which you know produce obnoxious health. Now, here's a quick overview of how your workouts should be structured for varying strength and muscle building proportions. If you're training extremely for strength, your reps should be less than 5. If you're training more for strength, your reps should be 5 to 10. If you're training more for muscle, your reps should be 10 to 15. But remember, the output you get from either of these ways depends on your protein intake. Generally, the more protein you consume, the more you gain output, which is strength and muscle. And there's another way to extend the gains you reap, and it's by progressive overloading. This is when you gradually increase the volume of your workout to force your muscles to adapt to the weight, getting you stronger over time and preventing early plateaus. But please don't forget that you can't out-science hard work and discipline. So if you want this to come into reality, as cliché as it sounds, you must remain consistent. And if this video educated you on these popular topics, subscribe for more.